Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. In this video, which is part of my book club series, we will be diving into Cal Newport's best-selling book Digital Minimalism and how it changed my view on social media and technology in general. First, we're going to talk about the importance of having a technology philosophy and the stakes of not having one. Then we'll dive in deeper into the principles of digital minimalism itself. And lastly, I will provide to you some practices which will help you become more intentional with your use of technology. Let's dive in. Okay, so if you're in the possession of a laptop, a computer or a phone, which I assume you do because you're watching this video, you've probably all been there. You're working on a project and suddenly you get distracted by the sound of a notification, or maybe you've just been scrolling through TikTok or Instagram Reel for a large amount of time. Time flies by, you're wasting time, and at the end of it you might even feel guilty because you just know you could have spent that time better. Well, now the reason why you're being swept away by distractions so easily is probably because you haven't defined for yourself a philosophy of technology use. Now, what is a philosophy of technology use? Easily said, it is a predetermined set of rules that are rooted into your deep values that provide answers to the questions of what tools you should use, how you should use them, and equally important, enables you to confidently ignore everything else. Let's for instance take my phone. I believe that most of you have them, and I know that I get distracted easily by it. One of my deep personal values is the one of self-control. So to help me with that, I have disabled all the notifications I get from social media apps on my phone. This is an example of a rule that I have set for myself based on my deep values on being intentional with my use of technology. Cal Newport, the writer of the book, has defined for himself his own philosophy of technology use, which he calls digital minimalism. Cal describes his philosophy as follows. Digital minimalism is a philosophy of technology in which you focus your online time on a small number of carefully selected and optimized activities that strongly support things you value and then happily miss out on everything else. Look, the reason why we usually download an app or subscribe to a service is because we believe it will bring some amount of value. However, the benefits that most of these apps or services bring us is often quite small compared to the disadvantages that they bring, such as, for instance, distraction. In that regard, it is rather better to have few high-quality services than have a lot of low-quality services. In the book, Cal offers us 3 principles of digital minimalism. With principle number 1, clutter is costly. This principle covers what we just said earlier, in the sense that digital minimalists recognize that cluttering their time with too many devices, too many apps, and too many services creates a negative cost that swamp all the small benefits that are provided to us from each individual item. The second principle is the one of optimization being important. While in the first principle we considered what technology tools we should use, digital minimalists believe that this is only the first step. To fully extract the full potential out of this technology, it's also important to think how we should use these tools, or just as the principle says, optimize it. The last principle states that thinking intentionally about what tools to use and how to use them is eventually deeply satisfying. Just the act of being intentional and making decisions based on your personal values provides that digital minimalist with a large amount of satisfaction and meaning. And this is what makes this philosophy so effective. Rather than having satisfaction provided to you by the use of external events and external devices, this time satisfaction is provided to you from an internal source by living according to your values and making decisions according to your values. At the end of the day, many people also experience that the satisfaction provided to them by making intentional decisions is higher than the promised small benefits that come from all the use of these many apps or services. Now that we've gone over the theory and the different principles of digital minimalism, let's now look at some practical steps we can do to optimize our digital experiences. In the book, Cal goes over 18 actionable steps that you can do, which you can find right now on the screen, so feel free to pause for a minute. But for time's sake, I will be only going over the ones that have been the most relevant to me personally. The first practice is to take long walks. Through distractions in this digital age, Calport argues that we have lost one crucial skill: the ability to spend time alone by ourselves in solitude. Solitude has been the time for many thinkers of the past to reflect on their own actions and create new theories or new discoveries. Nietzsche on that account, for instance, said, "All truly great thoughts are conceived while walking. I personally take these walks while taking a break, when my brain, for instance, is too tired to try and find a new solution for a certain problem. But on the other hand, these walks can also be used just for that purpose as well, to solve problems and spend undivided attention on those problems. These problems don't have to be solely academic. They can also just be reflections on your own action or thoughts, as well as other things your brain might deem important to think about. The second practice is the one of consolidated texting. Since the rise of the smartphone, I think we have learned a little bit too well how to have conversation while on the phone texting. In my teenage years, I used to be a heavy texter myself, with lots of sleep being lost while texting with friends until 2 or 3 AM, which maybe you might recognize yourself in. However, texting is not a worthy alternative to face-to-face conversations. The more you text, for instance, the less necessary you'll deem real conversation. And then when you do have face-to-face conversations with a friend, you might have that compulsive pull to keep on checking your phone for other interactions that are going on your device. And at the same time, it's diminishing the value that you're actually given from the experience with your friend at that time. So paradoxically, the tool that's meant to improve your social life, social media, actually reduces the value we derive from it. In the past years, I'm not really the type anymore to have hours long of conversation while texting. Rather, now I use texting as a means to set up a real life appointment with someone. And then when we do spend time together and have face-to-face conversation, I notice that the conversation is usually going much deeper and feels more fulfilling to me than texting ever would be. Obviously as well, when I'm in a face-to-face conversation with a friend, I try to keep my phone as much out of the conversation as possible. The third practice is to schedule your low quality leisure. I think we all can agree that we want our life to be as qualitative as possible. However, that is not how we usually live. We usually schedule in the times we will perform highly qualitative work, like working on projects, going to school or going to the gym. And the rest of the day is usually spent in distraction by our devices. And Cal proposes in the book to actually do it the other way around. So to schedule in advance the time you'll spend on low quality leisure. So for instance, if you decide beforehand when the times will be that you check social media and check notifications on your phone, etc., it will leave you with more attention left to spend during the times you actually need that attention. Without access to your standard screens, the best remaining option then is to fill the remainder of the time with quality activities. Now notice, importantly, that you're not quitting anything or losing access to any information. You're just simply being more mindful of when you engage with this part of your leisure life. Cal even goes further to state that he believes that the vast majority of regular social media users can receive the vast majority of the value these services provide in as little as 20 to 40 minutes per week. Now if you think about it, we usually spend about that time on our phones per day on social media. The fourth practice is to turn your device into single purpose computers. Now what do I mean with this? So another practical tip you can do is to transform your devices, your laptops, your computers, your phone, into computers that are general purpose in the long run, but are effectively single purpose in the short moment. This practice suggests that you might even use other apps such as Freedom or Fullest to control when you have or when you allow yourself access to any app or website or service supported by a company that is actually looking for your attention. In the book, Cal is not talking about occasionally blocking some sites when working on a project, but he wants us instead to think about these services as being blocked by default and made available to us on an intentional schedule. So it goes even a step further than the previous tip, in which you not only schedule in your low quality leisure, but you actually actively block access to any of these websites or the apps during your high quality time. For instance, let's say that you've decided to check social media and check your notifications on your phone twice a day between 12 or 1 p.m. and between 7 and 8 p.m. in the evening. Now then, outside of these times, you would then actively block these apps so you wouldn't get any access to them. The last practice is to use social media like a professional. So what if you started approaching social media as if you were the directing of an emergent media of your own life? You could make a careful plan of how you interact and use any of these different platforms with the goal of maximizing good information and cutting out all of the waste and things that are not of value to you. For instance, I have throughout the years done many detoxes on my social media. I've unfollowed a lot of people because I noticed that they didn't bring me any value or they made me feel bad about myself. At the same time, I try to be mindful about the things that I post on social media, thinking about if it is bringing value to anyone and if I actually enjoy myself what I'm posting on there. Importantly, I want to address this one point again. It is not about deleting all these apps or services out of your life, but it is simply about being more intentional and mindful about what apps and services that you will allow in your life and how you will interact with these. If you would like to see how I exactly set up my phone and my other devices to strive for digital minimalism, let me know in the comments and then I might make a video on that. If you've enjoyed the video or gotten any value out of it, consider liking or sharing it. It really helps the channel and it motivates me as well to keep on going. And lastly, I would say, if you want to see more content like this, consider subscribing as well and hitting that bell notification. And then we'll see each other in another video. Bye bye!